and binds the power of government.
That entity. Okay, that's excellent. So, we, the sovereign people, have the final say. So, what do we do to hold our servant government accountable when they not only infringe upon our rights, fail to serve us, but continue to usurp our rights?
Okay.
Is there a process for that?
Well, the best process for that is first to know your rights.
Certainly.
If you don't know your rights, you don't have any. A lot of times the government, police officers is probably the one we experience first and foremost. If a police officer has a sense that you don't know your rights, he may abuse them.
Sure.
If you go into a courtroom, let's say you've been charged with a traffic ticket of some kind, there are certain guidelines the government has to follow, and it has to adhere to these guidelines. If it steps outside the boundaries, it has broken the law.
Sure.
It has violated you. So understanding where those boundaries are, that's first. So knowledge of what government is first. Knowledge of our rights is first. And then knowing how to prosecute the government for a violation of our rights gives us power over the government. Government officials tend to tremble a little bit more if they think that you might sue them, or you might vote them out of office because they violated your rights or they stepped outside the boundaries of their power. So going back to the question, I wanted to lay a foundation before I answer the question. Well, the first thing that we can do is study the law. And the law that we need to study is the principles of constitutional law.
Okay.
Because the Constitution, again, it's a declaration of power to a government from the people. So if we're going to interface at all with the government, which we do 24/7 in our lives, it's important that we know those fundamental principles. So you could file a lawsuit against a government official. That's one way to enforce the principles of law against the government. Again, you could vote a public official out of office. But what happens when the government becomes so big and becomes such a monster, such a beast, that a lawsuit may not fly, or let's say the judges in the bench become corrupted, or even the legislatures, they get bought and paid for by lobby groups or special interests. What do you do then? There's a provision that goes all the way back to the Magna Carta. It's called a petition for redress of grievance.
Okay.
And a petition for redress of grievance, you basically, you sit down, and the best example I could give would be, I think everybody knows what a power of attorney is.
Yes.
You go out and hire someone, and then you sign a little affidavit, and you say, I want you to go represent me in this matter. The Constitution is a lot like that. The Constitution, if you think of it as a power of attorney, you give the government certain authority. If it goes beyond that authority, well, if you're the agent,
Sure.
if you're the principal, and your agent is out there going beyond the scope of the power of attorney, well, you got to call him on it.
Sure.
If you don't call him on it, the whole world will think that you consent to it.
Right.
So calling your agent on it is the responsibility of the principal if he wants to absolve himself from any liability created by the agent.
The agent.
And that is done in the context of government with a petition for redress of grievance.
Okay.
You petition the government with your complaint, your grievance. Okay, and then you basically, it is a complaint, and you serve it on the appropriate official. And the appropriate official has an obligation under the principles of the law of this country to respond to the petition for redress of grievance. If the petition for redress of grievance is not responded to, then the government agent that is abusing his power or violating the principles of the Constitution, he has a bond that is now in danger if you know how to attach a bond against a public official. Another thing, another way to enforce that type of refusal would be to withhold payment of taxes
Sure.
to the government. Now, if you're doing this on an individual level, you're probably not real secure in doing this.
Right. Nor successful.
Or successful, because you're just one individual. But
Certainly.
we the people Congress has come together. This is what we are about. We're about, number one, educating people about their
Sure.
rights. We're about bringing people into an understanding of what government is relative to the people. We're educating people about sovereignty. We're educating people about the fundamental principles of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. And we're petitioning the government for redress of grievance.
Okay.
We've put together a number of petitions, and we've served them to the appropriate government officials over the, since the middle 1990s.
Okay.
And we've tens of thousands of signatures. We're approaching hundreds of thousands, 100,000 signatures on our petitions right now.
And that was going to be my next question, is where in this process, due course, or recourse, I guess, are we with We the People?
Okay. We the people, in preparing, let me tell you how powerful these petitions are. These are not just willy-nilly, we've got a small light and transient, complaint against the government. We have very specific constitutional transgressions. For example, the war in Iraq is an undeclared war. The Constitution specifically provides that any war needs to be declared by the Congress. Okay, we turned that into a petition for redress of grievance.
Okay.
The Constitution specifically says that direct taxes shall not be imposed upon income, and yet today, the IRS, the government of the United States, is presumptively imposing a direct, unapportioned tax on income. So we put together a petition for redress of grievance to that end. Okay, and there's a whole number of them, and we'll provide the website for people to go look at these.
Certainly.
But to answer your question, I wanted to lay that foundation. To answer your question, we have petitioned, we've served them on the appropriate public officials, and they said nothing.
What does serve them mean?
Okay, serve them means we had a disinterested party
Okay.
go
Neutral.
And take the petition with the signatures and go and hand deliver it to the president,
Okay.
or the members of Congress,
Sure.
or the head of the Federal Reserve System, or the Secretary of the Treasury. Okay.
Okay.
And so they were. That's what I mean by served. We
Okay.
took the petition and served it.
Okay.
So that they couldn't say, "Well, I never got it."
Right. And you're not serving the government, the entity, but somebody.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
A person.
We're touching an individual.
Sure.
It's just like in a divorce case or any other lawsuit, the plaintiff has the obligation of serving the paper on the defendant.
Sure.
And that's called notice and opportunity. That's part of
Okay.
due process. Everybody, if you're suing somebody or being sued, you want to know it, and the person doing the suit has an obligation to tell.
let you know.
Yeah.
Sure.
So